It was a chilly evening in late November when Dr. John Watson received a hurried summons from his old friend, Sherlock Holmes. The letter, penned in Holmes's distinctive handwriting, bore the urgency of a case of utmost importance. With a sense of anticipation tinged with apprehension, Watson made his way to 221B Baker Street. As he ascended the stairs to Holmes's flat, Watson's mind raced with possibilities. What new mystery had captured the attention of the great detective this time? Pushing open the door, he found Holmes seated in his armchair, his long, slender fingers steepled in thought. "Ah, Watson, I'm glad you've come," Holmes greeted, his piercing gaze fixed upon his friend. "I've been presented with a most curious case, one that promises to challenge even my deductive faculties." Watson settled into his accustomed chair, his curiosity piqued. "Tell me, Holmes, what manner of puzzle has come to occupy your mind?" Holmes leaned forward, his eyes alight with excitement. "It concerns a man by the name of Professor Presbury, a distinguished scholar renowned in the field of anthropology. He has sought my assistance in a matter that he claims to be of the utmost secrecy and delicacy." Intrigued, Watson listened as Holmes recounted the details of the case. Professor Presbury, a man of advanced years, had recently returned from a sabbatical in South America, where he had been engaged in the study of ancient civilizations. Upon his return to England, however, he had become the subject of peculiar behavior that had alarmed his family and colleagues. He has been observed exhibiting strange, almost animalistic tendencies, Holmes explained, his brow furrowed in thought. His demeanor has grown increasingly erratic, and there are reports of him prowling about his estate at all hours, like some sort of creeping man. Watson nodded, absorbing the details of the case. "And you suspect foul play?" Holmes inclined his head. "There are elements of the case that suggest a deeper mystery at play. Professor Presbury's sudden transformation defies rational explanation, and I am inclined to believe that there may be more to this than meets the eye." With a shared sense of purpose, Holmes and Watson set out for the residence of Professor Presbury, situated in the tranquil countryside of Surrey. As they journeyed through the rolling hills and verdant fields, Watson couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that hung in the air. Upon their arrival at the stately manor, they were greeted by Professor Presbury's daughter, a woman of quiet grace named Alice. She led them through the sprawling estate to where her father awaited them in his study, a room lined with shelves, filled with ancient tomes and artifacts. Professor Presbury cut a striking figure, his features weathered by years of scholarly pursuit. Yet there was a haunted look in his eyes, as if he bore the weight of unseen burdens. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, thank you for answering my summons," he greeted, his voice tinged with a note of desperation. "I fear that I am in the grip of forces beyond my comprehension, and I turn to you in the hope of finding answers." Holmes regarded the professor with keen interest. "Tell me, Professor, when did you first notice these unusual symptoms?" The professor hesitated, as if reluctant to speak of the matter. "It began shortly after my return from South America," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "At first it was subtle, almost imperceptible, but as time went on, the changes became more pronounced." He recounted how he had experienced fits of uncontrollable rage, accompanied by an insatiable hunger for raw meat. His nights were plagued by vivid nightmares, filled with visions of primal landscapes and savage creatures. I have sought the counsel of physicians and specialists, but none can offer a satisfactory explanation, Professor Presbury confessed, his hands trembling with emotion. I fear that I am losing my mind. Holmes listened intently, his mind working through the details of the case. And have you considered the possibility of foul play, Professor? Is there anyone who might seek to harm you or exploit your condition for their own ends? The professor shook his head, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. I can think of no one who would wish me ill, he replied. Yet I cannot shake the feeling that there are dark forces at work, lurking in the shadows. Holmes exchanged a meaningful glance with Watson, a silent communication passing between them. It was clear that the mystery of the creeping man was far from resolved, and they would need to delve deeper into the heart of the case to uncover the truth. As they bid farewell to Professor Presbury and his daughter, Holmes and Watson retreated to the seclusion of their lodgings to formulate a plan of action. The night was spent in deep discussion, poring over every detail of the case in search of clues that might lead them to the answers they sought. In the days that followed, Holmes and Watson embarked on a meticulous investigation, scouring the countryside for any sign of the elusive culprit. They interviewed witnesses, examined evidence, and pieced together a timeline of events in an effort to unravel the tangled web of intrigue that surrounded Professor Presbury and his family. Their efforts were met with frustration at every turn, as each lead seemed to lead to a dead end. Yet Holmes remained undeterred, his mind awhirl with possibilities as he sifted through the facts with the precision of a master craftsman. It was during a visit to the nearby village that they stumbled upon a clue that would prove to be the key to unlocking the mystery of the creeping man. A local farmer, upon hearing of their investigation, approached them with a tale of strange happenings in the woods surrounding the Presbury estate. "I've seen him, sir, with my own eyes," the farmer whispered, his voice trembling with fear. "The creeping man, as they call him. He prowls about the woods at night, his eyes gleaming like those of a wild beast." Intrigued, Holmes pressed the farmer for more details. It seemed that the woods held secrets of their own, secrets that might shed light on the strange occurrences that had gripped the countryside. That very night, Holmes and Watson ventured into the depths of the forest, guided by the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the dense canopy above. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. As they moved deeper into the woods, they became aware of a presence lurking in the shadows, a sense of malevolence that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. With each step, the feeling grew stronger until they were enveloped in a palpable aura of dread. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight, where a figure crouched amidst a circle of ancient stones. It was Professor Presbury, his features contorted in a feral grimace as he muttered incantations in a language long forgotten. Holmes and Watson watched in stunned silence as the professor's body underwent a startling transformation, his limbs elongating and his skin taking on a sickly pallor. Before their eyes, he became the very embodiment of the creeping man, a creature of primal instinct and savage hunger. Realization dawned upon Holmes, a revelation that sent a chill down his spine. "It is not foul play that has brought about this transformation," he whispered to Watson, his voice barely audible above the professor's guttural growls. It is something far more insidious. With a sense of urgency, Holmes sprang into action, his mind racing as he formulated a plan to confront the creeping man and put an end to the madness that had gripped the countryside. Drawing upon every ounce of his intellect and resourcefulness, he marshaled his strength for the final showdown. As the creeping man advanced upon them with bared teeth and outstretched claws, Holmes stood his ground, his eyes ablaze with determination. With a swift motion, he hurled a vial of potent elixir at the creature's feet, its contents releasing a noxious cloud that enveloped him in a choking fog. With a primal roar, the creeping man staggered backwards, his senses overwhelmed by the toxic fumes. In that moment of vulnerability, Holmes seized the opportunity to strike, delivering a swift blow that sent the creature crashing to the ground in a heap. As the fog cleared and the moon emerged from behind the clouds, Holmes and Watson stood victorious amidst the ruins of the ancient stones. The creeping man lay defeated at their feet, his human form restored once more, albeit battered and bruised. In the aftermath of the ordeal, Professor Presbury returned to himself, his memory clouded by the events that had transpired. With Holmes's guidance, he sought treatment for the affliction that had befallen him, determined to rebuild his life and leave behind the darkness that had threatened to consume him. As Holmes and Watson made their way back to London, they reflected upon the strange case of the creeping man and the lessons it had imparted. Sometimes, the greatest mysteries were not to be found in the far reaches of the world, but in the depths of the human soul. And though the case was closed, the memory of their encounter with the creeping man would linger in their minds for years to come, a testament to the enduring power of friendship, courage, and the indomitable spirit of inquiry that drove them ever onward in their pursuit of truth.